What is up, everyone? It's your boy, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make deeper kind of house music in the style of Jus. So, as usual, you can get the project file and samples from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because they'll be available. And yeah, let's dive in. So, the first thing I have here is the lead, which sounds like this. And so, the way that I made this is it's 2 layers. It's this one, and then this one. And you can hear, like, they just kind of both play off of each other. So basically what this first one is I made it with operator. It's just a little bit of FM synthesis. We have 2 sine waves. You can see the second one has, like, that sort of envelope, and it's up an octave, so that's what's giving it that, like, fluty kind of tone. And yeah, the only other thing that I have in operator here is I used a little bit of a pitch envelope just to kind of give it more of a click at the start of the sound. It's subtle, but it's the subtle things that really make a big difference. So after that, I just have a bit of reverb, and then I have a compressor sidechaining into the kick. Pretty straightforward. Now, on the second lead, what we have is I made this one with analog. So basically what it is it's 2 square waves. The second one is up an octave, and then I have those going into this low-pass filter, which has a bit of an envelope on it. You can see it's shaped like that. And yeah, this is just like a straightforward, kind of like nice, warm-sounding square wave. I was trying to get that kind of like really deep lead that you hear in a lot of Jus tracks, and I think this is the secret. It's like the square waves with the low-pass filter. Yeah, you can really get a lot of cool stuff with that. So I have the amp envelope set like this, and then after that, I just have a little bit of vibrato for some kind of like movement, and then I have a tiny bit of unison, which you can hear is really just beefing up the sound. So after that, what I have is I have this ping pong delay, which you may hear is actually kind of a pretty important part of the sound. If I turn the reverb off, you'll hear it more. But you can hear, like, this lead is really rhythmic, and I'll also take this as an opportunity to talk about the notes a little bit. So yeah, like, you can see we just kind of have this simple little thing. The track is actually in D minor, I believe, which you'll see when we get to the bass line. So this isn't, like, this is playing in A, and it's playing some kind of weird intervals. That's not the root note of the key, so that's why it works. But yeah, like, you can see this is really rhythmic. It's just based on all these eighth notes here. And it's supposed to kind of like, yeah, play off of the upbeats like that. And so this delay just kind of helps to accentuate that. Like, it gives it just a little bit more kind of like eighth note groove, I guess. So yeah, so then after that, I just have a bit of reverb and then a compressor sidechaining into the kicks. So that's pretty much the lead. Like I said, it's 2 layers. They sort of like complement each other. Like this one is more like the clicky sine wave, and then this is more like kind of a soft, smoother, like, lead that just sits underneath that. So the next thing we have here is the bass, which sounds like this. So this is 2 layers. It's like this pluck, which I made with some FM, and then this sub. So the pluck I'll show you first. Basically what it is it's just 2 sine waves, an operator, actually kind of similar to that first lead. But you can see, yeah, I just kind of have them set like this. I use the envelopes to make them kind of plucky. And the second one, I have the coarse pitch, or the coarse tuning, whatever you want to call it, up to 4. So that's kind of like what's giving it that like deep house FM sound. It's really important to use these kind of basses if you want to make, or to use these kind of, yeah, synths if you want to make this kind of sound. Like FM synthesis is a really, really good way to achieve that like deep, sort of like deep house bass donk pluck thing. So yeah, so I just have that, and then that's going into a low-pass filter, which has an envelope on it. You can see that. Here's without the filter. And then with. So it's actually really subtle, and the reason why I'm using it is just to kind of shorten the length of the bass, actually, because, like, I don't know, this was just a little bit long. But sort of shortening it with the filter envelope can give it kind of a cool, sort of like pluckier vibe. So yeah, so then after that I have a few effects. The first thing I have here is actually this chorus, which is kind of optional. I'll turn it on and show you what it's doing. So you can hear, like, it sounds actually pretty good on this bass. And the only reason why I didn't just keep it on there is because, to be honest with you, I feel like this could work either way. Like, it could work being really wide and stereo like this, or it could work without anything and just be like down the middle. So that's on there, and yeah, if you get the project file, you can use that, or you can't, or you don't have to. Like, it just kind of adds a little bit of a nice stereo width to the bass, but it's not necessary. So then after that, I have a saturator, which is just kind of shaping the sound more. I've talked about this a bit, like, recently, but I really like using FM synthesis with, like, a saturator, especially using the wave shaper, because it's not just about making, like, really distorted FM saturated sounds. It's like, with FM synthesis and this wave shaper here, what you're doing is you're really, like, shaping the sound using harmonics and using, yeah, just, like, a more kind of scientific method than, like, just distorting a couple sine waves or distorting a square wave, or, you know, like, stuff like that that kind of leads to random things. This is just a really good way to dial in exactly what you want. So that's what I did here. I just used this to kind of accentuate that, like, FM pluck type of sound. And yeah, you can hear it just kind of brings it forward and sort of ties it all together. So then after that, I just have a compressor sidechaining to the kick, and then finally I have an EQ8 cutting at the low end to make some room for the sub. So then on the sub, what we have is, it's actually just a sine wave and operator. I believe, yeah, that's it. It's just a sine wave, really simple. And that's going into a saturator, which I used to add some harmonics, because the sine wave on its own really wasn't what I wanted. Like, what I wanted was that kind of like warmer, like almost square wave-y sound. So yeah, so I just use the saturator to kind of bring out some of the harmonic content, and also like that kind of helps glue it together with the pluck. Like, they sound like one bass now, I feel like. And yeah, so then after that, just have a compressor, side chaining into the kick, and that's it for the bass. So then the next thing I will show you here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this is just a simple kick. I made it with 2 layers. Basically, we have like a low kick and then a high kick layer. So the low kick was just like a nice kind of punchy sort of like, yeah, low end E kick. And then I filtered that one down. I didn't really like the high end of that one. It sounded a little bit too synthetic. And the thing is, like, if you listen to Jou's kicks, usually they have that really nice punchy EDM kind of low end like this one does. But they don't have that, like, that same kind of top end. So what I did was I just cut it out using this EQ8, and then I have this top layer for, like, the high end. So this is just, like, a nice kind of punchier, sort of like drum machine style kick. It sounds a little bit more realistic. And then I have that going through an EQ8, which is just cutting out the low end to make room for the other one. So yeah, so those two just kind of fit together really well, and that is the kick. So then the next thing I'll show you here is this little upbeat hi-hat, which sounds like this. And so this is 2 layers. It's this one, and then this 909 hi-hat. So I'll speak briefly about why I layered them. If you listen to the 909 hi-hat, it has that cool, like, sort of retro sound we want, but it doesn't really have like a really modern, nice kind of crisp sound. So what I did was I layered the synth hi-hat under it to just give it that really, really smooth, kind of like mid-rangey white noise type of sound. And yeah, so I'll show you the synth hi-hat first. It's really simple. All it is it's some white noise going into a into a bandpass filter, excuse me. And the bandpass filter just allows you to kind of like shape it and focus on a certain range of the white noise. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Like, making hi-hats this way is really simple, but it's really good. I've talked about this a lot before, but if you put white noise through a bandpass filter, you can basically get any kind of hi-hat you want. Like, you can get anything from this to like something like this. Like, you can really do a lot of stuff. And even when you start messing around with like the envelope on the white noise as well, there's just a lot of stuff that can be done. And again, it works really well when you're just trying to like accentuate or complement another sound. And yeah, so that's a synth hi-hat. And then for this 909 hi-hat, yeah, it's just like a nice kind of 909 hi-hat sample. Like with Jou's music, you know, there's kind of like the deep house influence, so I wanted to include a very deep house kind of sound in here. And yeah, so the next thing we have here is the shaker, which sounds like this. So this was made kind of similarly. Basically, it's 2 layers. It's the synth shaker thing, and then this actual shaker loop. So I'll show you the way that I made the synth shaker. Basically, it's just like some pretty similar stuff actually to the way I made that synth hi-hat. So what we have going on in here is I actually just made like a really simple, basic sort of FM sound. What it is, it's a saw wave. I use the saw 32 waveform, and then I have a little bit of white noise doing some FM on that, and then I pitch the saw wave up. So I'll show you what that sounds like on its own. So yeah, I just kind of made this like weird sounding sort of tone, and then I put that through a bandpass filter. And then what you get is you get kind of something similar to what you would get if it was just like some white noise going into a bandpass to make a hi-hat, but because of that saw wave you can hear it's a little bit crunchier. And it sounds a little bit more like a shaker as well. Like when you just do white noise, it's a little bit more like a hi-hat, but this definitely has more of a shaker kind of quality. Now, the only other thing that I did in Operator here was, if you see here, I turned on this velocity volume connection thing. So essentially, you can hear it, and I'll show you as well. These, like, basically this pattern kind of has like this, the loudest note is on the upbeat, and then all 3 of these notes are like a lot quieter. And that's what makes it sound like a shaker. So I just did that with the velocity, and then linking the volume to the velocity. Yeah, it gave it that kind of like that difference there. So then after that, I just have an auto pan to give it a kind of like fake sidechain effect. And yeah, so then under that I have this actual shaker loop. So this is just a recording of a shaker. And yeah, I put it through some effects to kind of give it a different flavor. So I put it through this amp and then through this cabinet here actually. So the amp and cabinet, I have it on the clean setting, and then I have this set like this. It just kind of gives it a bit of a different texture. Like with shakers like this, you already have so many high harmonics going on in the sound that I'm not really trying to like add harmonics like you would, distorting like a bass or something like that. I'm really at this point just trying to make it sound kind of different and weird. And yeah, I'll show you what the original sounded like before I did that. It sounded something like this. So yeah, then after that I just have an EQ8 cutting out the low end because it was kind of messy. And then finally I just have an auto pan doing this sort of fake sidechain on that. So yeah, so then the last thing that we have here is this clap, which sounds like this. And so there's really not a whole lot to say about this. I mean, it's just a straightforward clap. It's more about sample choice with this. Like if you want that really nice kind of like futuristic deep house sound, just try to get a clap that isn't too retro but isn't too modern at the same time. Like if that makes any sense, like you don't want a super hard hitting like big room clap or something like that. By the same token, you don't want just like a super dirty like old school 909 hi-hat or clap, excuse me. I'm getting my drums mixed up here. But yeah, like just something like this that's nice and crisp. And still kind of sounds like a drum machine clap, but also has a little bit of a modern flavor to it. Now, I did do one thing here at the end. You can see there's this different clip here. So I made a little sort of like fill. So basically what I did was I just put that little clap on the upbeat before the 4 there where the clap regularly hits. It just gives it kind of like a cool thing. And then I also added this little delay automation. So we have the 16th note delay. It's a ping pong delay, and I'm just automating the dry wet to come up. And you can see it kind of goes down like that as well. Like I was kind of imagining it if there was like another bar or another 8 bars of this loop, it would be something like this. Like something like that if this was a full song. It just kind of gives it something to signify that it's like a new part without having to do something really obvious like a huge white noise riser or some kind of weird sweep like that. So that's pretty much it for this one. I want to show you guys some techniques to make some jus style stuff. I've gotten a few requests for it lately. And yeah, so thank you again, everybody. Make sure to check out the sample pack from this video in the description and like this video as well as subscribe. You can check out my social media, which is on the screen right now. And yeah, thank you again, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial.